Start recording. All right. So it is quite a short topic. Just we will illustrate the concept of templates in the case of functions and classes. So first, the templates in functions, how you can use it, and what's the templates? What do we mean by templates here? Here, function template, it is a pattern. We call it as generic pattern for a function that can work with different data type, meaning that when you create a function, you know that you have to identify the input and the output of this function. So if you have a function A, so this is a function A, you have to specify the input parameters and the output type. So this is a generic prototype of any function. But now in our case, this return type, this is the type here, I want to make it generic. So this is the type here. Also here, we have the input parameter type. This one may be integer, maybe double, maybe, and so on. But in my case, I did not specify right now. I don't know which type will come from the user. So I want to make it generic. So with many data types. So this is the key idea, how you can do it. So a written, when you define a function, the parameters are left. That's, we call it left for the data type. We make it generic. So we don't mention is it integer or double, you make it just generic here. All right, it's template. That's why we call it template. When called, when you call the function, the compiler will generate a code for a specific. The compiler will know at runtime, is it double or integer or string or whatever. The compiler will identify at runtime when you call the function. So this is the key idea. It's about the data type, how to make it generic. All right, we'll see here by examples this concept. So you see here, I'm defining a function. This is times 10. So this is the name of a function here. All right. Then we have one input parameter. We have one input here and one output here. So this is one output here. But as you can see, I'm using a variable t here. It's t. This is the type. This stands for the type here. The type is t. I'm returning this value, but I don't know which type of number. All right. This t, how to define this t? You have to use this syntax. You have to use the keyword template. You have to start with the keyword template. Then you have to use the class, which is the type. Then you have to use the variable name. We use t, a, b, whatever. But here, for convention, we are using t. So this is the syntax that you have to use in order to identify this function will take input parameter as a template here. All right. So again, what you have to do before you define the function, you have to create your template. How? You have to use the keyword template first. So this is the keyword. You have to use it. Then you have to use the parentheses here. Then you have to use the class name. So it's class, meaning type. The keyword class. We are using keywords here. Then the name of, maybe you call it A instead of T. So this is the name. Just use the name. If you use A here, you have to change here. I'm using of type A. Of type A. All right. So just this line, you have to create this line, and then inside the function, the input parameter and the output parameter, you have to use the defined type. So you define your type. So it's defined here. Is it clear, this idea, this syntax, how to create a template for a functions? Do you have any question about this slide here? Is it clear, the syntax? Just to start with keyword template, then between the angle bracket here, class and the name. If you use name T, so inside the function, you have to use the T instead of double, because usually when you define a function, so the normal function here, I have to identify I'm returning type of integer. Then this is my function is times 10. Then I have to identify the input parameter. It's one of type integer. I'm receiving integer number. Then this is simple function, just return the 10 times the number. As usual. So now I want to change the type here. I will make it T. T is template here. And here I will change the integer with the type T. All right. So now this is the new definition. This is the new prototype. But before that, you have to identify what do you mean by T. T must come first. Okay, clear this idea. I think we have example. So this is the template prefix here. We call it a prefix. Then this is generic type. Then use it inside the function. All right, so now in the main, what's going on? In the main, when you define this function, so from the main, what the compiler will do, so now we have the first case here. If you are using it from the main program, so here in the main, here, this is our main. I will call this function. So what you have to do when you call this function, I will just to make see out this function. I'll call the out, I will print out the output from this function. So I need to call this function. So it's times 10. You have to pass parameters now. If you pass 10, meaning that you are passing integer. If you are passing 10.2, so the compiler here will understand this is will change for you. The compiler automatically will change the type based on what? The caller. You pass double, so it will consider this prototype. If you pass integer, only 10, so automatically the compiler will rename. It's like this, will understand this is your prototype. So based on the call from the main. Okay, clear this point here. Do you have any question? We have example here. We can execute this. So this is the same example here. What you have mentioned, you have to define the function first, and here from the main. So this is the main of your program. What you have integer variable, integer value with 3. We have
Excuse me, doctor.
yeah,
The class T, is it similar to the class that we learned before?
class T here,
It
similar to
is the classes that we learned.
it's keyword. Keyword, you have to use it with you have to use it with the template.
Okay.
Okay, so you have to use this keyword and this keyword here. Just you understand this keyword, you must use it when you define a template. All right, so in the main here we see I have two variables, the first one of type integer and the second one of type double. Then I will call the function times. I will pass integer first, then I will pass double. So the compiler automatically will know. So it's generic. No need to change. You automatically the compiler will link the type for you. Okay, clear this example here. I will run this example to show you how it works. All right, we discard. We have this example here. So what we have here first, you have to create the template. So this is the first step here. You have to create your template class T. So now this is type. So I'm returning of type T. I'm receiving of type T also. Of course, you can receive more than one parameter. So I'm receiving also of type T. This is number 2. All right. So for now, we will try with one parameter. All right. So this is the function here. In the main, we have integer, we have double, and we just see out. We call the function here. I'm calling the function and passing. So now, when you execute, you'll just see the output. But what's behind the scene, the compiler automatically will understand this type is the first time is integer and the second time is double. So if we execute here, you just will see the output. So this is the output here. We have 30, then we have 25.5. So there is no error. I make it generic. Sometimes I pass integer, but if you specify here, if you make it integer here, so you cannot call from this line. So if you try to execute now, so this is drawing here in the, this is integer here, so we are expecting this line will be error. I'll try to comment just this one. So it's just normal function. What's the error? I try to show the error here. All right, so no matching function times 10 of type integer. Right, so it's running here. This is integer. It should be simple function. What we return. All right, so without this definition here, because we are using the template here, so we mentioned that this function should be generic because I'm using the template here. So the compiler will understand this one should be generic. All right, so you need to comment this line in order to check. Okay, guys, do you have any question about the idea of templates and how you can use it with a function? Of course, you can pass more than one parameter. So this is number 2. I will multiply with number 2. So I need to pass. I'll try to pass different types here. So I will pass two values. So the first one is integer. So I'll try to execute here. So you cannot make two different values. You have to make it of the same type because this one will be converted to integer. So this integer, this integer. So you must pass only one type. So I'll try to make it here integer 2. Then I will execute. So now is okay. Should be fine. All right, so if we have another template here, sorry, one more template of class D. This is class D. I just try here. All right, so we have two different types. I'll see if the compiler can accept this syntax or not. So we have double here, 2.5 here. All right, I'll try to execute here. You cannot define more than one template. You have to use only one template. If you see the error here, so wasn't declared in the main. So you have to use only one template. Okay, do you have any question about this example here? Do you have any question here? Is it
Can we
okay?
change the letter T?
Sorry, letter. Yeah,
Can
okay. This is D. This is D. This is D here. I have to. Sorry, this is a different example from the class. I need to return back. Okay. I just need to copy this example here. All right, so here we just return
Doctor.
to the class. Ah, sorry, yes.
So basically, if you want to just call out the template, you just have to write the name, right?
Name of template here.
Like for this one is timestamp, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
You
if I want to call back the template, I just have to write timestamp, correct?
the templates will be linked here. So this is let me explain again. What you have to do here, the key idea I will explain for a template here. So I'll just return back the code. So this is the main here. All right, so this is the main. So now, usually without templates, what we have to do, we just need to identify the type. I have to mention this is should be integer, and this one, for instance, must be double, for instance. So I have to mention the type. Once I mention the type here, so I should pass only integer here. All right, so this function must take integer and return. And so now what's the key idea? If I'm changing at runtime, I sometimes pass double, sometimes I'm passing string, sometimes whatever. If this change is happening in your program, so it's better to use templates. So what's the change now? Don't mention the type here. Change the type. The type is T, and this type is T. You will try a different letter here. This type of my type, I will call it. This is my type here. I just try to change the name of the variable. So this is my type at runtime. Maybe integer, maybe double, whatever. All right. Uh, Sorry, we change here. Yeah, this one. It is number. This one should be number. All right. So now I'll try to execute. So this is my type now, which at runtime the compiler will understand that this type should be integer because here we are passing integer. So it will be automatically change this one to integer. So now it's generic. Once you pass double, if you change here to double, so now the compiler will understand this my type is double. So no need to define two different functions. You can use only one function. Okay, clear this point. You make it generic. You can specify the name. You can create only one template here. Is it clear this idea here? What you need to do? We just change the type to be a template here.
Yes, understand.
Okay, welcome. So this is the key idea of templates in functions. So this is the syntax here. Functions template can be overloaded. Of course, you can have more than one template here. You can define another prototype. So this function with one parameter, you can identify another function that will take two parameters. So I have another, this is overloading. So now I'm taking two parameters, number one and number two. This is the number one. I will multiply number one by number two. So from the main, I will call for the first time, I'm using double. I'll call the first prototype, then I will pass two parameters here. But you have to be aware that you need to pass only one type. You cannot pass two different types. You cannot choose this one. I will try to execute now. So you see, this is overloading here. We are changing the number of parameters. So this is the execution here. Sorry, we have something wrong here. Number one, number two. This is the type here with double. All right, so you try to execute here. What's trying here? Type doesn't match my type. So this is first one, second one is here. We'll return this type number one times number two. If I return only number one, so right, so what's wrong here? Sorry, we have to make overloading also in the templates also here. So you have to overload this one also. So now I have overloading here. So I have another prototype. So it's very similar to the number of parameters in your prototype. So this will take two. So this is second one will be here. I'll multiply with number two. All right, now we will try to call both functions. My t, what's syntax here? Before the function directly, you have to move the template before the function. Immediately before the function, you have to create the template here. All right, so I'll try to execute now. Maybe we need to change the name of the variable. So this is, I'll check the template here. T2, different variable. This is T1. So this is type 1 here. This is type 1 here. And here we are using type 2. So this is type 2 here. Type 2 here. So we are using T2. All right, we'll try to execute now. Class T2 doesn't conflict of T2. T1, T2. This is the syntax. Oh, sorry, the syntax is okay. Sum all. We have function here. Sum all. All right, I just replace here. This is the first one here from all. Then we have the implementation here. We need to return num here, and this is the second one. We just do the multiplication inside. We return num1 times num2. Alright, so I'll change the name of the function here. So it is sum all. Alright, so I'm using double. I'll check now. Okay, guys, clear the overloading of multiple types. This idea is clear how to overload the templates. You have to be aware about the syntax. The function prototypes comes immediately after the prototype, and for each function you have to create a template. Right, so each template must have a unique parameter list. So we are using T2 here, we are using T. Okay, guys, all data types specified in template prefix must be used in the template function. Function calls must pass the parameters for all data types specified in the template prefix, like a regular function must be defined before being called. So now, in case you change here, you are using T, the first one. You see here, this is the mistake. You have to use different variable, T1, T2 each time. You have to create a different name for the template. For instance, here, I'm using the name of the previous one. I just try here. If I can change for the first function, I will use integer. So here I'm using integer. For the second one, I'm using double. So now I have to pass integer here. All right. So I'll just try. Sorry, you cannot. You have to use different template for each function. I cannot use variable t here. Okay, guys, clear the idea of templates, how to create a template. Do you have any question about overloading or how to create a template here? If it's clear, I need to move to the templates in the case of classes. All right, so develop a function using usual data type first, then convert to template at template. So this is a syntax how to use the template, how you will convert from normal functions to a template. So you have to change the type and you have to use the prefix template. All right, so now in the case of classes, can you use different data type in the classes? We will see now. Classes can also be represented by templates. When a class object is created, the type information is supplied to define a data type members. So it's unlike the functions, classes are instantiated by supplying the type. We will see the syntax in case of classes. So you see here, this is just a normal class. You have to use the keyword class and the name of the class. This is the private section, public section. But you see what's the change here? The type here. So I'm changing the type of the data. Also here, also here, also here. So I make it generic. So this is the change only. remove the type to be generic. So all these types will be the same. If this is integer, should be integer, and this one should be integer, the same. So you have to create the template ahead of the class. Before the class, you have to create the template to be linked with the class. So this is the definition of the class. From the main, you have to create object in this syntax here. So this is from the main program. So this is the name of the class. You see the syntax now. The class name is grade here. I'm creating an object. So this object test list, it's array. But here you see in the syntax, I'm telling the compiler this type is integer. So I'm using this syntax here. It's different from the case of functions. In the functions, you just give the parameters, you just pass the parameters. But here, when you create an object, you have to tell the compiler after the name of the class. So this is the class name. You have to identify the type. This is from the main, right? So after that, you can use this object. You can use it later to access the functions. All right, so we will see this example. This will be the last one here. How we can use the templates in the case of classes. So this is the example here. So you see here, this is my class of type here. This is type of parameter t. For the constructor, it will take of type t. For the setter, will take of type t. For the getter also will return type t. I'm changing the type. Usually we have to mention this is integer and this one is integer and this one is integer. This is the traditional way. When you create a class, you have to mention the type. Otherwise, it will be wrong. But now, using the template to make it dynamic, you can use the variable t here. Class, the type t here. All right. So this is the creation of the class. It's very normal class, but you change the type here. After that, we have the main here. So we are creating an object. But you see the syntax now, you have to use the keyword grade. This is the class name. Immediately you have to use this syntax. So meaning that I'm telling the compiler all these types should be integer. And I need to pass integer also here. So I'm passing to the constructor of type integer. In the second case, I have another object quiz list, but I'm passing double. I'm defining this one should be double. All right, so you see the execution here. So there is no output, we just create an object. If you want to call the getter or setter, we'll try to call the getter. So we just make a new variable integer t. This t will equal test list dot getter. All right, so we get the value because here is integer. We are expecting to receive an integer here. You can see out t here. All right, so now I'm calling the getter. So the getter will automatically return for me integer because here I'm defining integer type. So if you execute now, you will see integer 10. All right. So this is just the syntax. It's straightforward. You just use the template and you left the type. And then in the object creation, you have to use this syntax. Otherwise, if without this syntax, this will be wrong here, right? It's undefined for the compiler. So missing template argument before. So it's an argument that you need to pass it to the template. Okay, clear this example here, how to use the templates with the classes.
Yes.
No question. If no question, I will end here. This will be the last example here. This is the end. Just in the case of the classes, you make it generic. Then from the main, you have to use this syntax here. The name of the class and the type of the data. Then you use just your object. If your object is array, is single parameter, whatever your object. Okay, guys, this is the end for today's session for the class. Next week, I'll try to give you feedback about your marks in the skill-based test in assignment, which you already finished. I'll try to give you feedback. Also, try to solve the skill-based test. I will show you how to solve it. So maybe when on Monday or Wednesday, I'll see one class. I'll choose one class. Will be the last one. It's just revision. Do you have any question before I end today session? Any question about the project? Maybe about today class? If you have anything,
Did we finish the labs? Do you have any labs left?
no, we have only two labs. I already post to you on e-learning. We have two assignments and two labs. I already give you the labs. So each one will mark 5. So we have 10 for the labs and 10 marks for the assignments.
Lab 2 is already finished, right?
Lab 2, the deadline, I'm not sure about the deadline, but I'll start marking from this weekend. I'll start the marking for the test plus the labs. I think still assignment 2 plus lab 2. I'm not sure about the deadline, but those who finished, I will try to give you feedback about your marks. In finally, after the project, of course, I will give you the whole marks in your project. All these things, I will give you feedback about it. Okay. Do you have any question before I stop here? I need to stop my record.